Well, good morning. It's great to have a few minutes together today, and I'm thankful more than I can say. I'm grateful today for each one of you, and thank you for taking a few minutes to join us today as we look at the Bible, talk a little bit about how amazing and wonderful God is. Let's realize just a quick reminder. I'll be in Job chapter 5 in a minute, but just because there's trouble, let's don't blame him on God. There's troubles, but he's a good God. He's faithful. He's the one who's bailing us out of this mess this world's put us in. But before I get to Job, I want to mention just a couple of things about where we are in our world here. There's a lot of graduations going on. I think I saw a graduation going on at a local school. I was driving home for whatever, I don't know what, late afternoon, and there was a line of cars going through a parking lot, and some people out. It almost looked like a car wash kind of thing, only they weren't washing cars. And I didn't really, it didn't register what it would be. And then later I was coming back the other direction past that same school, and I saw a line still there. And there were bubbles being blown of a bubble machine or whatever, and some stuff being given out. And I thought, I think this is a drive-through graduation. I think this is what those kids get. And of course, then we've got our kindergarten graduation we did, and our eighth grade graduation we did, and seeing those little kindergartners walk up the aisle to the platform and stand up there and read out loud, and not just read, but they quoted Bible verses, and that's a little scary for a kindergartner to be up in front of a bunch of people. Then that was on Sunday night, and then on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, the 6th and 8th grade had a graduation ceremony, and then Saturday afternoon, our high school graduation. I'm thankful for our church, for our parents, for the people that have invested in the ministry and the lives of young people. There are young people graduated on Saturday who they were born and brought into our church nurseries from day one, and they've grown up here. And these are young people that all of us in our church have invested in. You who've prayed for our ministry, supported it financially, you have a part of their lives. And some of these young people are headed off to Bible college, and others have job opportunities. But I'm just saying a word about our young people, that I am very grateful for the quality of young people that are going out, and the proof is in the pudding, they say. We've watched our young people get jobs, all kinds of jobs, in the most unusual places, and good jobs, work their way up into management positions, and it was, of course, God's mercy, but it's also good parents, good training. I think for our young people, I think our car wash and our candy sale taught them, and our science and history fair, where they have to do reports in front of people and put up their displays and then defend their propositions in front of people. And I think our kids learn to talk. I think they learn to communicate, look someone in the eye. I think our young people learn to deal with people. Most of our teenagers in 9th grade and up work, at least help on a bus somewhere. Excuse me. And they're learning to talk to people, talk to strangers, to approach people, to be appropriate. And what a great thing that these young people are learning to deal with people. Well, they maybe go to college a year, 2, 4 years, maybe they get a degree or whatever, and then they go out into the career world and find that they're needed, that they're wanted. And it's such a great thing to see the lives of young people. See, I believe if we do the will of God, that as a general rule, God will bless and lead, because there's certain principles of life that they work that way. Now, there's sorrow and there's heartache, and if you're raised in India, it's different than being raised in Southern California. But wow, what a great thing to raise your children in we're not going to steal from the boss. We're going to show up on time. We're going to do what we're told. We're going to work hard. We're going to treat our coworkers well. And what a great thing. And I love these young people. that we've seen march across platforms this week, and I'm very thankful for any little part I've had in their lives. Now, I'm at my desk here, and over to my left, got a picture of my wife and I, my parents, and then my grandmother. And my grandmother was a member here of our church for a long time, and she passed away 20 some years ago, I guess. And but she was a part of the ministry here, loved, and she always wanted to do something. She'd carry tracts to the grocery store and stop and pass out tracts. She'd make cookies for camp. She'd ask, how many kids are going to camp, and how many cookies can I make? And she'd start ahead of time, and she'd make cookies for everybody at camp so they could have homemade cookies. And she was just a part of things. And of course, my mom and dad, my dad oversaw the rest homes. He sang in the choir, helped in all kinds of ways. And then my mom also involved in the school music choir and rest homes and other things. And then when my dad went to heaven, my mom continued to be involved in ministry things. And then my wife and I were the rookies up there on the wall. But just thinking about things, my grandmother, I look at her with nothing but good memories. But she had a husband who left during the Depression, and she raised her daughters alone. And I never heard her complain about it. I've heard a little story here and there from relatives when her husband got real sick. I'm going to say emphysema, but sometimes I don't get the names of things right. She brought him back and doctored him and cared for him until he died. I don't know if there was ever divorce there. I don't believe there was. I think she just brought him. He came back. He needed a place to be, and then she married again, and that is the grandpa I remember most. My mom's dad died when I was little, and I remember him just vaguely, more from pictures than from reality. But my grandma's second husband, I remembered him because we did a lot together, and he was just a party. He was a lot of fun. But my grandma lost him to a heart attack, and she was a Depression gal and World War II and Korea, and she had siblings and in-laws that were in the war, and she carried a load, and then lost a husband, and then lost another husband. And my grandma always managed to be a bright spot in our world. And I just, we're not going to get through this world without troubles. We're just not. And I wanted to mention here in Job chapter 5 and verse 7, Job 5:7, yet man is born into trouble as the sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause. Now, there's two principles here. Number one, we're going to have trouble. There's no way around it. It's going to happen. We're going to face trials. It's just a reality. Now, in these 40 years, basically 42 years of ministry, I've seen a lot of struggles. I worked in Chicago for several years, in North Chicago, in some poor areas, and those were difficult. There's no question there. The people had burdens. But through these years, a lot of friends in the ministry, a lot of children of friends. And we could talk like you could of stories of children born with skin diseases, children born with handicaps, kids that are, by the time they're a teenager, they've had a dozen or more surgeries, all kinds of burdens and troubles, from unfaithfulness in marriage to loved ones with drug addictions, alcohol abuse, betrayal, and on and on. And that's just things that go on in life. And it's not because you are some evil person that some of that has visited you. It's like Job says in verse 7, man is born into trouble as the sparks fly upward. As real as these sparks are floating toward the ceiling, so are our burdens and our struggles. There's natural disasters, and we've all read about earthquakes and volcanoes and mudslides and flooding, hurricanes, and on occasion they're near to us. There's been in my lifetime many earthquakes in California, but most of them you barely feel. But there's been a couple that were pretty scary, and freeways falling down on the roads below them, and not much of that, just a couple times in all these years. I've spent most of my life in California. But there's been like Hurricane Katrina that wiped out New Orleans and other hurricanes. And then there's tornadoes that would take out a mile wide and miles long, just take out all the crops, take out houses and barns and things. And, those, we call those natural disasters. I think if I understand it right, insurance companies used to call them acts of God. And they're real things. Then there's human error and human wrong. Buildings burned down because people hate you. Churches burned down because of hatred. Law enforcement making a terrible mistake and having your world completely turned upside down to receive we're sorry, we were wrong, and nothing in back. And we've all heard stories here and there of someone who finally the truth got out, and they'd been in jail for 5 or 10 or 15 years, and the truth got out, and they were innocent, and they were released. They don't get back their 15 years. They don't get back their reputation. They don't get anything back. And the few I've heard talk, they've always been just grateful to be out, and I admire their spirit. But there's political tragedies, there's political injustice, there's total corruption in our political world, and tragedies from an assassination to just corruption. And we can go from Abraham Lincoln being shot to the ambassador and faithful, wonderful Americans being abandoned in Benghazi by the Secretary of State and the President. And there's political tragedies. And we have a tendency, we want to blame these tragedies on people. And we have a tendency to not be willing to accept the reality that this world's full of burdens and trials. And so I want you to look at these two verses. And I probably ought to take a Sunday and just preach on this, but I don't know if I will. I've got too many notes and too many sermons. So you get a couple of minutes this morning that may someday be a sermon. But verse 7 is settled. Man is born into trouble as sparks fly upward. It's as real as if you start a fire and the smoke and the sparks go up. That's how real it is. You're going to have trouble. The question is, what are you going to do with that trouble? At some point, you're going to have to choose. You're going to be bitter. Are you going to become a victim? Spend your life, poor me, I'm a victim. Are you going to seek to pay back? Are you going to be filled with vengeance and retribution? Your goal is to get back at these evil people. And you know what's sad? Someone lies, steals, hurts, cheats, whatever, and I go do whatever to them. And you can name it, from spit on them to throw a rock through their house window to shoot them and kill them or whatever. Whatever retribution we want, to sue them and get money out of, whatever it is. The problem is that I was wounded in my heart, and retribution never fixes the heart. And your husband or your wife left you, and what a tragedy. And I've not had that. I've had this, just a couple of weeks away, the 27th of June. I'm messing up on my anniversary. Good thing my wife isn't watching. It's June 27th and July 20, and I mix those up. My wife's birthday is July 20. Our anniversary is June 27th. But to realize that I've not had betrayal in my marriage, and so I don't know how someone feels. I've had some hurt along the way, nothing that I ever care to make a big deal out of. It may be a big deal, but there's no point in making a big deal of it. And so the trials come. But you see, no matter if something went wrong and somebody rammed their car into my house and did whatever, burned the house down, I lost everything I had, and they ran off and no one ever righted the wrong. You know what? That my heart is the thing. Out of the heart, out of the soul of man, that's where joy and happiness resides. And money and vengeance can't fix those things. So we can be bitter, we can be a victim, we can try to pay back, but we could also, there's another option. It's in verse 8. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause. That is a life-changing verse. Your parents were a mess, and you were raised by grandparents. You're never met your mom or dad, and the other one was spent most of their time in jail, and you're in a whatever situation. all that. And what a tragedy that any human being has to face there. But man is born into trouble as the sparks fly upward. We are going to face trials. The question is, could we look there at the end of verse 8? Could we commit our cause to God? Could we take our situation and take our heartache and commit it to God? You hold your place there if you're looking at your Bible, but let me just read a verse in Job chapter 14. Job chapter 14 and verse 1. It says, man that is born of woman is of few days and full of trouble. Now there's, of course, Job, he had his share of burdens, didn't he? And, but if you go back to Genesis chapter 3, it says this, and unto Adam, God's talking, he says, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. So his area of agriculture, his employment is going to be cursed. Thou in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. And so it's not just talking about dirt. It's talking, I think, about this earth we live on. And there's going to be troubles that come because we live in this earth. And in sorrow shall we eat of it all the days of our life. And so there's going to be burdens. There's going to be injustice. There's going to be unemployment. There's going to be war and earthquakes and famine and pestilence and all kinds of things. My great-grandparents were, and prior, they were all farmers. I mean, full-time farmers. And the grasshoppers would come through, or hail would come, a hailstorm would take out a crop, or there wouldn't be any rain. And what do? You lose a whole year's income in a very brief time, or much of the year's income. Genesis 3:18 says, thorns and thistles shall it bring forth unto thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be difficult. You're going to try, and it's going to bring forth thorns and thistles. And you're going to say, I started this business with all the good intentions, and I really tried, and then it went down and bad. And my mom and dad back there in the picture here next to me at my desk, my mom rented or leased a closed restaurant, a small restaurant, kind of a cafe sort of thing. And they served everything from breakfast to prime rib dinners. And it had been closed, and she made it the first year. I think she said she made 50 cents an hour or something for all the hours she put in. She'd open at 6 in the morning, and her and my grandma would have homemade pies and all kinds of amazing stuff. And throughout the day, and it'd close at 10, 11 o'clock at night. Well, the next year, the clientele established, and they started making little money. And then the next year, the owner thought, well, if it's going to make money, I'm not going to renew the lease, and I'm going to do it. Well, and it didn't work, because what made it work was my mom and my grandma. But the fact is, thorns and thistles shall it bring forth, Genesis 3:18. And I don't ever remember my parents complaining. I don't ever remember the whining and the pouting. That just wasn't a part of it. I mentioned it the other day, and I think Friday morning, in my morning moments I did from my mom's porch. Life was good, and God's going to take care of us, and we'll figure out a way to make it go. But pouting never fixed anything. Now look, and I struggle, and Job struggles. We all struggle with things. The key is not verse 7, that man is born in trouble, or Job 14, where a man that is born of a woman is few of days and full of trouble. That's not the key, because that's all of us. The key is verse 8. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause. What are we going to do with our cause? What are we going to do with our situation? And we could commit it to God. Now, I struggle like anybody else does, but I don't struggle with bitterness and hatred. I don't lie in bed at night thinking how I want to get even and I want to do this or that. I've never been that way as a child. I never wanted to hurt anybody. And I don't know what, we're all different, but I've never had a vengeful spirit. I've never had a get even attitude, and that's just not been me. But so I don't, I'm not lying in bed at night thinking what evil things I could do to somebody or some business or some doctor that messed up a surgery or whatever. No, but I'll tell you what I do. I struggle with my committing chapter 5 and verse 8, committing the thing to God. I'll sit and think, why can't I just give this thing to God? There I got to struggle. Man, I'm human like you are. My faith is weak. When the Lord told the disciples, you forgive 70 times 7, they said, oh, Lord, increase our faith. Man, we might be able to forgive once. We might be able to forgive twice, but I don't think we could do it 7 times in the same day. He keeps coming back. I don't think I could do that. And so we've got to commit the thing to God. And at some point, we need to rest in Him. There's some burdens and there's some trials, and I think of these high school seniors that just graduated. I want them to enjoy life. They've heard it from me over and over. I want them to enjoy life. Sure, there's going to be some burdens down the road, but let's don't talk about it yet. Let them enjoy being single and 18, 19, 20 years old. Let them enjoy that paycheck from a fast food restaurant and feeling like they've got more money than they know what to do with. Let them enjoy that first car and maybe just getting their driver's license. Let them enjoy the first date and getting to actually go on a date and who's going to buy and how do we act. And man, I want these kids to enjoy life. And you know what? Life is full of joy. Sure, there's some burdens and they're real. Everybody's got them. But I don't want to spend my life miserable. So I'm going to commit my cause. Job 5:8, I'm going to commit my cause to God. And the rest of it, I'm going to do my best to praise and thank and rejoice and enjoy what God's done for us. I want to encourage you. We can't stop the visitation of evil. The flat tire is going to come. This morning I was walking across the driveway here at church and I saw about an inch long screw and I picked it up and tossed it into a garbage can. Well, maybe I just saved somebody a bad day getting a screw jammed in their tire. I don't know if it would have flattened the tire, but you're going to get a flat tire. You're going to have a car accident. You're going to have a visit to the doctor, and some more than others. But we have a great God. We have a wonderful God. Could we commit our cause to God? Could we trust Him? And I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying this. Easier to trust God than to trust ourselves. I can't fix anything. Easier to trust God than it is to trust humanity. Humanity's proven themselves pretty corrupt, don't you think? I think it's easier to trust God than anything else. And it's not easy, but it's easier than going out into the world hating it and feeling like I'm a victim and I don't have a chance to make, you know what, I believe I have a chance to make things happen for good and for God and business and job and whatever it is. I just do. I think God's good and I think I can treat people right. And if in God's plan, He wants me to be a Jeremiah, where Jeremiah spent his whole ministry frustrated and difficult and in the sewer underneath the palace or something. But that's the only one in history we know of like that. Job's the only one we know of in history like that. Most of us, we're going to have some pretty good days. Joseph had 13 rough years, maybe 11 rough years, depending on how you date things. He was 13 years in Egypt, but those last few years I think were the years of prosperity. So Joseph had some rough days, but he had good days, and he married that girl and had him a couple of good boys, and those boys got an inheritance in the land of Canaan. And I think I'm just going to decide we got a great God. What a good life God's given us. And yep, there's some burdens, and we're going to get through them, and we're going to live for God and make a difference. And I hope you'll be a help to people. I hope you and I would determine we're going to go into that world and we'll be the bright spot in someone's dark day. Have a great day. Thanks for taking a few minutes to join us today.